with nothing, afforded no due process. He's got 3 children with disabilities, a sheet metal worker, a union member, and the fact that he wore a Bulls hat in 2019, a Chicago Bulls hat, is the justification that ICE uses in claiming that he's a gang member of a city that he didn't live in. Again, I am all for the deportation of dangerous criminals. I live in an American city too. I want my family to be safe too. I have the same fears that everybody else has. I'm not blind to the realities of life in America in the year 2025. I mean, hell, I can guarantee you that the amount of threats that I receive in my inbox are far more than the average American. So if anybody's hyper aware of crime, it's me. But do it legitimately. Disappearing this guy is not legitimate, nor, frankly, is it American. We have a Constitution and a Fifth Amendment right affording you a trial. If we've got a gang member who's here illegally, we're probably all in agreement that those people should be deported. But we have to know that they are gang members. And the way to do that is quite simply by affording somebody due process, which Garcia was denied. I am not defending criminals. I am defending that we know who the criminals are so that we're not punishing people who are innocent or even upstanding members of society. People who pay taxes and go to work and take care of their kids and enrich our communities. And I want to be clear, because Republicans are trying their level best to shoehorn this into the narrative, but what I'm saying is not an extreme position. Disappearing innocent people to foreign prisons is the extreme position. Period. Full stop. And if the moral imperative, by the way, to speak out isn't enough, which it should be, but let's say that it isn't. Let's say that you're still a numbers-driven person and you just can't bring yourself to want to discuss immigration because of what the polls say, then let's just look at the polls. According to the latest YouGov survey, of all the issues in the political zeitgeist right now, the question deporting immigrants without criminal convictions to El Salvador to be imprisoned without letting them challenge the deportation in court polls dead last among Americans, with 46% of Americans strongly opposing and 15% somewhat opposing. That's nearly 2/3 of Americans who oppose in some fashion what this administration is doing. Not exactly a home run hill to die on. So again, even if the moral argument isn't enough for you, the polling backs up that position, that disappearing innocent people to a foreign gulag with no due process is not something that Americans are responding well to. And in the same way that Donald Trump destroyed his lead on the economy, he is doing the exact same thing with his last vestige of support with immigration. And there's one more reason that I think it's important to discuss this, and that's because if we don't speak up now, we embolden Trump to go after everyone. The reality is that while this administration promised that it was only interested in going after hardened, undocumented criminals, they've already undermined their own promise by going after a guy like Garcia who was charged with nothing and is a legal resident. In fact, just this past week, it was reported that U.S. citizens are now being detained, including a couple up in Boston. This is a pattern by the Trump administration, and if you allow them an inch, they will take a mile. If one law firm capitulates, like Paul Weiss, Trump realizes how easy it is and he goes after a dozen more. If one university like Columbia capitulates, Trump goes after more. If one tech billionaire like Bezos or Zuckerberg capitulates, he goes after more. If one media company like ABC News capitulates, he goes after more. If we do not stand up and fight him now, when he's going after one legal resident who wasn't charged with a crime, then we don't get to act surprised when he goes after another legal resident, or ultimately American citizens. We've seen the playbook. He's already broadcasting it. We have to fight now while there's still an opportunity to fight. Next up are previews of my interviews with Gavin Newsom and Chris Van Hollen, but just a note, on one video per week, just this video, I have sponsors, so here's a quick word from some sponsors, and then my previews of my interviews with Gavin Newsom and Chris Van Hollen. No Lies brought to you by Acorns. I am certainly no expert when it comes to investing, and oftentimes I feel like I'm missing the boat when it comes to investing because other people know what they're doing, and yet I don't. Here's the deal. April is Financial Literacy Month. That's right. They made a whole month reminding you to finally take control of your money. Good news is you don't need 30 days. Acorns makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes. And you don't need to be an expert. Acorns is going to recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You also don't need to be rich. Acorn lets you get started with the spare money that you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. You don't need a ton of time. You can create your Acorns account and start investing in just 5 minutes. You don't need to feel like financial wellness is impossible either. Acorn gives you small, simple steps to get your money on track. Basically, Acorns does the hard part so you can give your money a chance to grow. And trust me, I know this stuff can feel intimidating. I'm intimidated by it. That's why Acorns is so important. So sign up now and join the over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/BTC or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 2 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC-regulated investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/BTC. No Lies brought to you by Fast Growing Trees. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Plus, get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. And look, the reality is that we all want our yards to look great and finished, but the difficult part is that we don't know how to get there, but the experts at Fast Growing Trees do. If you want to offload some of this stuff onto the people who actually know what they're doing, this is a great opportunity to do exactly that. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code BTC at checkout. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use BTC to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. We have heard that given the fact that there's very little Congress is willing to do, very little the Republicans are willing to do to rein in their own president's overreach, that the onus falls on the states to actually step in. And that's exactly what you've done today. You've just broken some news. Can you explain what you just did?
Well, look, I just remind people the size of California. It's the size of 21 state populations combined, fifth largest economy in the world. We're the largest, and most folks listening perhaps don't know this, we're the largest manufacturing state in America, $412 billion of output. And put that in perspective, that's 41% greater than Texas and their manufacturing base. And so no state in America is more impacted by Trump's tariffs, Trump's tax increase, Trump's regressive de facto sales tax increase, and all the uncertainty that he's brought to bear to our markets, to our allies, to our relationships and trade and supply chains around the globe. And as a consequence of that, we're already starting to see the effects in my home state, not least of which today, the markets, your 401k was impacted, the NASDAQ dropping significantly, NVIDIA, a great California company, great American company, one of the dominant global companies, took a $5.5 billion charge related to some of the uncertainty, the toxic uncertainty coming from the Trump administration. And so we sued. This is our 15th lawsuit since Trump took himself back, or rather got back in office. And we see the Trump administration saying that he does not have the unilateral authority to impose these tariffs. And we think we're on very, very firm ground. And we used the frame around the major questions doctrine. I won't get into the details of it, except to say the Supreme Court recently adjudicated against the student loans from Biden and against Obama's Clean Power Plan on the major questions doctrine. And if they're going to be consistent using that framework, we feel very confident the lawsuit that we just advanced, that these tariffs simply are unlawful, and Congress never specifically called them out under what we call the International Emergency Economic Powers Act.
Can you talk about the fact that Trump had run his campaign largely predicated on this idea that he understood Americans' pain as it relates to the economy, as it related to rent and housing and high grocery prices and the cost of eggs. My God, how many times did we hear about the cost of eggs from the Trump campaign? And yet the first thing they opted to do once they actually had power, once they no longer needed everybody's votes because they already got what they needed from people, is to engage in a trade war, a doomed trade war that would immediately have the impact of raising costs for everybody while at the same time gutting everybody's 401ks, including, by the way, for people who need to draw from those programs now because, they're in that phase of their life where they're living off of that.
Yeah, it's complete betrayal. I mean, the focus more on Greenland than the cost of groceries. Of course, you listen to Trump, he discovered the word groceries. He keeps literally acting like he's rediscovered a word and he's introducing it to the American people. That's serious. That's how out of touch he is. He lied to people. Today I did this, I announced this lawsuit today in the middle of one of the most densely populated Trump counties in the United States of America, in the heart of Central Valley, in the heart of one of the largest agricultural districts in America. I'll remind you, $48 billion a year comes out of the state of California in forestry, fishing, hunting, and agriculture. No other state, 150% larger than the next state.